Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we're back at it again with another react, and this time it's going to be focused on the upcoming story that we're all expecting for version 3.2. Yes, the tale of Aleph 1, Chisa, Honami City, all of that. We've made some previous videos covering the topic before ourselves, getting a bit of a, you know, like getting a bit theory crafting on what could potentially happen. My whole shtick regarding this entire debacle has been that Honami City, Lahai Roi, all of that, it's in some sort of like time loop. And the big realization that I feel like a lot of people had as they played through 3.1 was that a version of Rover does end up like dying in the story. You see like their literally you see like their corpse and stuff in like the lake. You know the one that I'm talking about. So naturally there are going to be some spoilers regarding this. I hope you've played 3.1 by now if you haven't already, because it is the best quest in gacha. And so that is a lot of what's going to be covered over here. And the video, it's pretty self-explanatory by the title. How Chisa's quest explains Rover's death. And it's going to be by Life Lessons, a big lore guy. So excited to see how this one goes. Excited to see what actually gets covered. And yeah, we'll just go ahead and see what he's got in store.
Chisa is possessed, and the loop started at the beginning of Hanami, not the end. One might think the loop happened here, but wait, what about here? Well, what if I told you it all started here? Now that I've recovered from the initial feelings of emptiness, regret, and despair from the ending of 3.1.
I'm gonna be honest, yeah, the editing work in this one is like crazy. Like bro is genuinely pulling out all the fucking stops here. Yeah, you know what? This definitely was like the very first thing that we saw in 2.8. Like, you know, once like the rift like opens and then we get dragged in, and we haven't got any answers as to who this motherfucker is.
Now that I've recovered from the initial feelings of emptiness, regret, and despair from the ending of 3.1.
Emotional damage!
Among the many questions brought up during the quest, one of the biggest mysteries revolves around the causal chain of Rover saving Imith, and consequently, Imith saving Rover, and further consequently, the world.
Because as we all know, Imith's fate was to go all the way back to like, I don't know, like potentially thousands of years before the game started, hundreds of years before the game started, to, well, sacrifice herself to kind of like resurrect the Exostrider that lands in Lahai Roi.
However, I believe there is a mysterious third entity that has been present ever since we stepped foot in Hanami, and I guarantee it's not who you think.
How much research has this guy done? I'm a little bit curious now.
I expected 3.1 story to be layered, but I never expected that it would end up tying back to our heroine from Hanami. In fact, I'm 98% certain Chisa is related to this mystery, and I'm going to prove it.
That would be good, because I think most people kind of have the same impression as me when it comes to the role that she's played thus far. She's kind of described as potentially one of the most powerful characters in the game, because she's revealed to be able to like cut through time. Yeah, that's like literally written into like her forte reports and all of that shit, and she's done kind of like fucking nothing the whole time.
Power of God and anime. Trust me, the clues line up almost too perfectly. With that being said, thank you. Thanks to you all who have supported my channel up to this point. I pray you have an amazing day, week, and year. Big shout out to Kuro Games for supporting the channel and sponsoring this video. You never know.
Oh, okay. They gave him like one of those mini sponsors. Yeah, he doesn't have like his own link. Maybe he should though, right? Because, well, I mean, this is the thing. There's not really too many lore channel videos, too many like lore channels out there. So it's good that they're sponsoring this sort of content.
How or when you'll have an impact, or how important your example could be to someone else. Denzel Washington. Let's begin at the end. Denzel Washington.
That's a wild way to start the segment.
Let's begin at the end. Rather appropriate, wouldn't you say? First, I'm going to explain the causal chain up to a certain point. Then, we will address the contentious parts of it. Tracing the signal that the radio picked up, Namipon creates a stable route through the rift for Rover and Chisa to get to Lahai Roi. We now know that rift was a portal into void space. In 3.0, Namipon says this.
The coordinates have all been calibrated. A smooth landing guarantee.
Dude, dude, I'm gonna say that one thing I'm not looking forward to is seeing Namipon talk in that fucking slow ass voice again. Bro, it's actually been months since I've heard that voice, and I'm not gonna lie, I kind of fucking hate it. Like, dude, they talk so slowly, it's crazy.
The lie detector determined that was a lie.
What actually happened is that Chisa arrived at her destination while Rover ended up trapped in void space. Why though? I believe this points to 3 incredible discoveries.
Namipon is actually Aleph 1.
The first requires us to go back to the beginning of the video. The loop started at the beginning of 2.8. When Rover gets pulled into the rift by Sumika, we don't go straight to the tower, where she—
Okay, so we're saying Sumika is actually... Okay, so I guess it is confirmed that's Sumika. So we're saying Sumika's actually the villain.
She's located during her final moments when she desperately reaches out to Rover for help. Instead, we find ourselves falling in some type of wormhole.
Bro forgot 2.8. I was viewing it from the perspective that, like, Sumika's actually somebody else. If we're saying that she dragged us into, like, this whole void space shit and is starting a time loop. It's more so the perspective from my end that Sumika is not actually who we thought she was. That's why I said that shit at the start. Because obviously, if the time loop starts when Sumika pulls them in, is Sumika just a Black Shores researcher? Probably not. Was Sumika the Grand Architect? Who fucking knows? Maybe, man.
Wait, you see that texture? Now, where have I seen that before? Oh yeah, void space. It's
Yeah, I don't know. It kind of seems like the Grand Architect now, right?
also worth noting that the song that plays when we first arrive in Hanami starts like this. Now, listen to Rover's first encounter with Aleph 1.
My frequency.
They sound a lot alike if you ask me.
Some could say they sound exactly the fucking same. So Aleph 1 was somewhere in Honami.
That leads us to our second discovery.
Which just even further reinforces the idea that maybe the GA was Sumika.
Aleph 1 may have tried to intercept Rover twice, but why and for what reason? By now you should be catching on. Rover's journey into the loop started the moment we entered the rift. However, there's something else that you might not have picked up on. The third discovery is in Imeth's animations. When she uses her first ult, we see what could be called a meteor shower with a pink trail, and after her final ult, we see a multitude of pink meteors.
Yeah, I can't see that shit in the TOA though, so maybe that's why I never caught this. Yeah, I don't think this happens in the Tower of Adversity.
Why is this significant? Because we see these same meteors after we first arrive in Hanami City, and again the night of the party. That night, Chisa did.
So that means that the Exostrator, like Ameth fucking ulted somewhere? That basically just means that Ameth ulted, like at some point.
Something that opened my eyes to the truth. She made a wish.
In this Hanami summer night, I wish for the moments spent with friends to last forever.
Why is this so important, you ask? Well, if you recall, Hanami was a city in Ashinohara, Chisa's homeland. There are stories of a legendary figure there who grants wishes, but not just any wishes, those that are for the good of the nation. Apparently, she is considered stronger or at least on the level of a sentinel. Things get more interesting is when you consider the fact that apparently Chisa resembles this figure. The figure's name is the Miko. Now, for the part that shook my entire understanding of the final scene of 3.1, apparently, the Miko has been working hard in the Frostlands. A conversation between two students named Ashley and Stephanie states, if you ever get lost alone out in the Frostlands, all you have to do is hope, pray, and wait.
I see. So, how the fuck did you even find this shit out? Isn't this like one of like is this even in a quest or is it just like background like world dialogue? Bro was digging. Bro was fucking digging. I don't like which quest is this shit even from? Or is it just casual NPC dialogue?
When a white bird appears, a Miko with white hair dressed in red will suddenly materialize and escort you back to the academy, then vanish without a trace.
Yeah, okay. Unfortunately, there have definitely been some leaks online that Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's a little bit rough. Yeah, there have definitely been some very, very public leaks online regarding a certain unit that, yeah. I'm gonna be real here. You're playing with some fire here, Mr. Life Lessons. Yeah, this is a sponsored video, bucko. But, like, then again, this is all shit from in-game, but it is convenient timing. Yeah, because, what was this released? 2 days ago. Interesting. Yeah, hey, well played, brother man. Well played. Should be a fun cleaning up of your comment section on this one.
Her outfit is neither modern nor Royan, says Ashley. And Stephanie says, the Miko has been seen talking to President...
Dude, I feel like he's gonna get in trouble for this. I feel like he's gonna get in trouble for this one. I don't know why, but because he is only showing in-game stuff.
Lucilla. This information sets the foundation for the rest of the video. Let's head back to Hanami City, right as Rover is about to leave. When Rover steps into void space,
why it's all in game? Because this is the thing, guys. It's very likely that his comment section is getting fucking spammed with shit like this.
they see an image of themselves falling to the ground, possibly even dying. They then meet face to eye with Aleph 1, the Thronodian. Before it can absorb Rover's frequencies entirely, it's deterred by way of... After the famous nose boop, Imith goes back to the past to stop Aleph 1, while a confused...
Wait, so is that the Exo Strider? Is he saying that this shit is the Exo Strider that stops it? Interesting. Okay.
Confused Rover heads to Lahairoi to get sideswiped by a class-skipping delinquent on a motorbike. The events of 3.0 and 3.1 play out, and everything seems to make sense until, in an attempt to save Imith after her clash with Sigillum, Rover jumps into the Gnungamir, which is similar to the lake the Exostrider sword is sealing Aleph 1 in, named Sundermere. Sundermere meaning divided lake. More on that in this video. Gnungamir comes from the Norse word Gnunga Gap, which is the primordial gaping void in Norse mythology.
What the fuck is a Gnunga Gap, bro? Wait, that's definitely not real. That's definitely not real. Wait, the Gnunga Gap?
Primordial gaping void in Norse mythology.
All
Mir
right.
means lake in Old
I mean, it looks like Aleph 1, right?
English.
That looks exactly like fucking Aleph 1.
So Gnungamir is a fusion of the terms meaning void, lake. In the lake, Rover grabs Imith to rescue her and has a vision akin to a flashback. Imith as a child, almost as if Rover is remembering it. The next encounter we have with the lake is where desperation and discovery converge. Rover once again jumps into the Gnungamir to save Imith, more specifically, void space.
Well, we all know how this one turns out. We definitely just like fucking die here, don't we? Like, you know for certain this Rover did not survive this. Like, they're getting fucking drained right now, bro. They're hella dead.
Void space. Here is where we see how Child Imith was saved. Rover of the present, meaning the 3.1 Rover.
The dead one? Nah, this guy's dead. He's super dead. They have to be dead. Otherwise, like, I feel like the entire scene makes no sense.
Encounters Child Imith in void space. The lake is made of two parts, the lake on the top and void space at the bottom. We know in void space, time doesn't move in a straight line. Thus, the conditions were met that allowed the two of them to meet. Present Rover saved Child Imith from void space, so past Rover can save Child Imith from the lake. She then grows up to overclock and resonate with the Exostrider, which is the first cause of her quest to save the world. She died and became a digital ghost during the crisis 10 years ago when the Thronodian was about to break the seal. I go over some of those details in my previous video. Fast forward 10 years, she becomes the
Is this like one of those, is this like the last video in the series and I'm supposed to have watched all the prior ones to make full sense of this? That's rough.
true resonator of the Exostrider, which basically means she can now resonate with it without needing to overclock. This was achieved by collecting the pieces of herself that were torn apart after she became a digital ghost. With her frequencies restored and the power Sigillum stole from her returned, she was able to traverse void space and go to the past when Aleph 1 first arrived in Soul 3 to help the Exostrider seal it on the other side of the Strider Gate along with herself.
I guess that does make sense, right? A big part of 3.1, right? Even before us going to the Exostrider does focus around like getting back those frequencies. So Yeah, it's kind of like all that buildup until she can go back all the way in time and then save Lahai Roy.
That established, there have been a lot of questions regarding some not so clear occurrences in the story. Among the biggest is how exactly did Rover survive this scene?
That's what I'm saying. They're fucking dead, bro. There's no way they're alive, bro. They like fade away.
Did Rover die? If so, who walked out of the lake?
And I've been saying that this is like Sigillum or some shit. This is where like my theory comes in, is that like Rover's dead, but we still have Sigillum's frequency that we absorbed earlier on in the quest. So I legitimately, like, my take has always been that it's like Sigillum that walks out and we're actually playing as Sigillum from like 3.1 onward. Or it's like it's vice versa. Sigillum died and then Rover walked out of the lake. It's one of the two.
Not, how did they survive? Well, my dear viewers, I believe Rover in fact did. And I'm going to prove it.
Wait, is this a collab? Are we getting ganked out of nowhere by another lore CC?
Did what?
You see, when Rover first...
No, hold on. Did what?
My apologies. I believe Rover did in fact survive. Yes, I'm 98% certain. And it all started with the Hanami heroine herself.
Oh, so he's just baiting. Oh, so he's going with a whole different theory now. I've gone with it's like Sigillum was involved, but he's going with the theory that Chisa actually saved Rover. Let's see.
Chisa. Let's turn back the clock to when Chisa and Rover were casually walking through Hanami City after the crisis. They came across a fountain, and after splitting the irid glow crystals from the fountain, they found a cassette tape rather curious.
Yeah.
There are some details, however, that some may...
And we know those cassette tapes, specifically when it comes to like Lahai Roy people, they like store everything. Yeah, they store everything. And it's like, sometimes when people get like wiped away by like the Void Storm or something, right? They disappear. And so like the cassette tapes are kind of like the only thing that's left to remember them. I think we learned that during 3.0.
They have missed. When Rover touches the cassette tape, we see what we'll call frequency information escaping from Rover's hand. Rover seems to experience something happening, but isn't sure what. Chisa says this.
Random castaways often appear inside the Honami sonorosphere.
What do we have here?
That's the Charmony Dove. That's the Charmony Dove from Honkai Star Rail. So this is kind of like the game died and it got cast away into Honami City. Yeah, this is the spirit of HSR.
Dear viewer, I'm here to inform you that I don't believe it was random at all. Remember the story of the Miko? The sign of her arrival is said to be a white bird.
Oh, dear. Oh, dearie me.
Starting to make sense? Remember Ashley and Stephanie? They said the Miko was seen speaking to President Lucilla. I believe the Miko got the cassette tape from the Academy and intentionally sent it to Hanami City along with Rover's old ID. Remember how when Rover went to get their cassette tape burned with Professor Mornier, there was an error in the system? An identical frequency code existed. Kind of like when you try to download the same file twice into a folder and you're met with a message to either skip the
Why'd you name the file that? 7 out of 10. I'm not gonna lie, that's funny.
File or replace it. In this case, it was kind of like trying to get an account.
Dude, even in a life lessons video, this guy can't get fucking. Even in a life lessons video, bro, he can't escape. Genuinely, the guy might be the biggest meme in the woo-wah space. Jesus Christ.
And you're met with a message to either skip the file or replace it. In this case, it was kind of like trying to get an account name, but yours was already taken. What's even crazier is that the file with identical code wasn't in any official archives while also being empty. Mornier decides to overwrite the file, calling it a data error. Now, what I think happened is this. The Miko got Rover's original cassette tape from their folder, as well as Rover's old ID with permission from President Lucilla.
That makes sense.
And possibly some collaboration with Mornier and Luke. She then proceeds to drop by Hanami City and deliver these seemingly random castaways Chisa and Rover would later find.
I mean, it is kind of fucked up, right? That she, like, the running theory here is that A, she came to Hanami City, just saw this bitch trapped and was like, yeah, leave her there. Right? Like that's the theory, right? This Miko person just came to Hanami City, just said, fuck this bitch, and then left. I don't know, that's a bit of a... Damn, that's kind of rough, isn't it? If that's the reality of it. She's just like, hey, all part of the greater plan. Wasn't she like depressed in there, right? And does that also mean that the Miko just like killed Sumika basically?
They're fine. Now that we have established the Miko's presence, I'd like to double down. When Rover touched the cassette tape, they created something like a save state that the Miko would later use.
Yeah, that's fair, I guess, but like still, what about Sumika, man?
Now, let's return to the moment when Rover saved Child Imeth. You know how I said I believe Rover survived after going near translucent? If only there were someone who was used to saving people in the Void Storm infested Frostlands. Oh wait, bingo! But how exactly? After the party, I always found it strange that Rover would feel the need to fall asleep. They don't get tired so easily, except when they're recovering.
And we all know that there's been a lot of that weird frequency shit and fading in and out. I wonder if they're gonna show like the boss, the false sovereign that shows up. I think he quotes Sigillum too.
3.1, Rover needed to recover after integrating Sigillum's stolen frequencies back into themselves. Kinda similar to how the Exostrider had to run diagnostics when the core was returned. The right of return when the Solaskin returned to the Exostrider also caused a period of higher Void Storm activity due to the Exostrider running diagnostics during that time. So, what if Rover fell asleep because in that moment, the Rover who fell into void space was saved by the Miko and was returned to the cafe to essentially have a new game plus.
Let me just think a little bit about how this is boiling down. So we're saying that Rover, as they saved Imeth, they go back in time all the way to Honami City and then respawn at the party. But then we were already playing as them, so it's like, I mean, it just sounds like we're repeatedly dying over and over again.
The Miko was reintegrating what was left of 3.1 Rover's frequencies back into 2.8 Rover.
There's definitely that whole, that achievement that you get, right? The night you don't remember. But that seems like a branch off, though.
When Rover opened their eyes, their hand was normal. They blinked and their hand was translucent, and blinked again, and it went back to normal. Seemingly, a process was taking place. What I also found interesting was when Chisa made that wish, the night the meteor shower that revealed Imeth was passing by, the following day, Rover hears her voice. However, we know that the only way Rover...
Right, because this is the quote. I hope to make you proud. I hope I haven't let you down. That's actually the quote from Imeth right when like the boop scene happens. Yeah, it's, that's from the boop scene. She like flies away after the boop and then says this.
One day, Rover hears her voice. However, we know that the only way Rover was supposed to hear or perceive Imeth was due to having the core and later the talisman. So, how exactly did Rover hear Imeth through the radio? Even if she sends it, Rover still needs to perceive it. Thus,
did nobody else hear this?
The following day, Rover...
Nobody else hears this, do they? Because I feel like Chisa and Shorekeeper would have probably turned around if they heard this. So basically the idea is that something is connecting Imeth to Rover over here. And before you needed the core, the other time you needed the talisman. So what is, I guess, the object that's connecting them right now? Maybe it's the tape.
Hears her voice. However, we know that the only way Rover was supposed to hear or perceive Imeth was due to having the core and later the talisman. So, how exactly did Rover hear Imeth through the radio? Even if she sends it, Rover still needs to perceive it. Thus, I theorize the Rover who heard Imeth was one who had already met her.
So we're saying that this is the Rover that's been augmented with 3.1's frequencies. But then if we've already met them, then why do we need... So I guess it's kind of like a... You kind of like see where the plot hole is almost like forming, right? Because if this is the Rover that goes to Lahai Roy and stuff, so it's like, why would they need then the core? Well, I guess they didn't need the core because Imeth booped us. So was the core and like the talisman, were they just baits? Because we end up seeing Imeth right at the start of 3.0. So did we never actually need the core, and did we never actually need the talisman in the first place because we already had those frequencies or memories, right? Because remember, right? That whole scene where, like, Aleph-1 is about to, like, fucking eat us, and then Ameth comes over to, like, boop us and then save the frequencies, that's all without any of this, like, connection that they were talking about. There's no core, there's no medallion or talisman.
This is why our Rover wakes up and we see the trophy, the story you don't know. Because Rover has the experience, but not the memory. 3.0, Rover asked a staff member if the cassettes could prevent memory loss and was told, while the burned memory frequencies are a perfect theoretical match to the owner's originals and could, in theory, stabilize the frequencies of someone affected by a void storm through reverse input, such attempts have never truly worked. We're still researching why. This explains what I believe to be the case of Rover's situation. This would also explain how Rover seemingly had a flashback of child Imith and Ganungamir, and it all goes back to the Miko, and consequently, Chisa. Before the swings, on the swings, when Rover and Chisa get the cassette tape in Hanami, when Rover and Chisa chat out.
Damn, this Charmony Dove is showing up very often. I had no idea the Charmony Dove was this present in the fucking story.
Outside the cafe after Rover wakes up.
This is actually more references to the Dove than Honkai Star Rail, actually.
It all points back to the Miko. So, what is the relationship between Chisa and the Miko? Now, this is the part of the video where we enter heavy theory crafting territory. So
it's kind of like the Miko is like Cristoforo, but like not annoying. Like the Miko is like Cristoforo, but not an annoying piece of shit. And instead of using crows, she uses Charmony Doves. Fair, fair, fair.
Strap in. It's still early, but it's clear there's some connection. I'd like to start with the inspiration behind Chisa. While Chisa visually looks similar to characters like Ai Enma from Hellgirl and Akame from Akame ga Kill, Chisa is thematically inspired by a common but adored Japanese trope called, quite literally, a Miko character.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I feel like the timing of this video is, again.
Miko characters have the qualities of a spiritual girl who is connected to purification and supernatural elements. Oftentimes, they are shown to lead somewhat of a double life as both a shrine maiden and a schoolgirl. We've seen this throughout media many times. From Kagome Higurashi in Inuyasha, a middle school girl who falls down a shrine well and time travels to Japan's Sengoku or Warring States period.
Holy fucking nostalgia, bro. This shit is so old, it's crazy. I remember watching this shit on like Cartoon Network, Adult Swim, when I was like, I think I was like below like fucking 10, bro. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is like elementary school shit right here.
Out, she's the reincarnation of a priestess named Kikyo from the past.
I remember this.
In Sailor Moon, the civilian identity of the heroine Sailor Mars. She works at her grandfather's Shinto shrine in Tokyo while also attending an all-girls Catholic school, creating that duality I referenced earlier. And even more recently with
who the fuck is this?
Sakuko Igarashi from Silent Hill F.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I don't know what the hell are these graphics? That's some Uncanny Valley shit right there. I don't like that. Yeah, I don't know whatever they did here, but it's a horror game. Oh, it's a horror game. Okay, that makes sense.
Igarashi from Silent Hill F, a close friend to the main character Hinako Shimizu. She's a bubbly, somewhat bemused character whose family manages a local shrine in Ibisu Gaoka. Later in the game, her spiritual prowess manifests in unforeseen ways. Thus, I believe
Did you have to put this one in here? Was this one necessary life lessons? I'm just gonna be honest with you. Was this example necessary? Why do you play that soundtrack with this? Like, bro, isn't she like, bro, what is this?
In Ibisu Gaoka. Later in the game, her spiritual prowess manifests in unforeseen.
Bro, what are you doing here? Why'd you do that? Bro, this shit is nasty.
Ways. Thus, I believe Chisa could either be one of these three things.
What the fuck is wrong with you? What do you mean one of these three things?
Either she is a reincarnation of the Miko, like Kagome, she's living a double life, like Reihino, or there's something even more supernatural at play.
What, she's a fucking Silent Hill monster?
Perhaps the spirit of the Miko is possessing Chisa. The Miko is said to have white hair, but what if Chisa's hair turns white at some point when she overclocks? Chisa, the legendary Miko. Here's my final shot in the dark. What if the Miko is actually Chisa from the future? So
at this point, are we implying that Chisa might be the first character that gets an alternative form? Is that his take over here? Because I'm pretty sure, right, this Miko or whatever is supposed to be released as a character. So his theory basically is that Chisa might be the first unit that gets like an alter form, right? That is his theory here. Because it would be dumb as fuck for a Miko character not to be playable, right?
If at some point in the future, Chisa overclocks and her hair turns white, and in that state, she's able to use void space to time travel. By using her clipping forte, she could carve her way through and get to the other side safely. Clearly, the Miko must be used to dealing with void matter incidents if she's saving people from the Frostlands consistently, right?
Well, I guess this is the thing, right? The true reveal of this will probably be based off of how much of the story we actually see in 3.2. If 3.2's story is entirely just focused on, like, Sigrika and nothing else, and, like, Lahai Roy and stuff, and Amith and her, you know, her sacrifice and Aleph 1 and all of that aren't tackled, then I think this is where we're gonna get the kind of, like, validity on this theory over here. So 3.2 isn't the kind of, like, saving the world adventure shit. We'll see, right? We'll see. I think like the validity of this guy's take over here is entirely based off of what 3.2 story is focused on. But one thing is clear about 3.2 story, right? We're gonna find that out in the live stream, which is happening very, very, very soon, right? And we're probably also gonna find that out when we see whatever is going on with like the 3.3 drip marketing. That's the anniversary patch, so the drip marketing is probably gonna happen really soon for 3.3. It might be ahead of schedule because 3.2 only has one new unit, Sigrika.
Oh, no matter how you slice it, Chisa looks to be making a future appearance in a big way, and I am excited for what happens next. I'm curious though, what do you think, dear viewers?
I'll say overall, this has definitely been a completely new perspective, I think, on the story that I guess makes sense. It requires a lot of like that extra lore reveals, especially with like all those conversations that happen with the students. But I definitely don't think it's any joke at all. Or it actually makes a ton of sense that this whole Miko character is a future version of Chisa. Because remember what I said before over here? I said, damn, this Miko bitch, right, just went ahead and just said fuck you to Chisa and left her ass in Honami City. But that's fine if the Miko is actually a future version of Chisa, right? That solves the plot hole of why this Miko just left Chisa in Honami City. Because it's a past version of her, right? That's something that I feel like life could have actually addressed over there, because I found that one of the biggest plot holes. Why would the Miko drop off all this shit for Rover, but then leave Chisa there to suffer and Sumika to die? Oh, it's because, Chisa's a past version of herself, and she knows that Chisa needs to go through that suffering to become the Miko later on. That's, I guess, what I'm, like, assuming over here. That kind of, like that, I think adding that extra bit to the Miko being a future version of Chisa, right? I think it does make a lot more sense. But there is one thing that I'll say over here when it comes to kind of, like, this theory crafting that he does kind of towards the end. He does a big sort of thing, like, talking about, like, how the Miko has, like, alternative, or, like, you know, has, like, two sides. A big focus of Chisa is that she already has, like, the two sides, right? There's, like, the dark Chisa that's, like, blue and stuff. So that seems to already be, like, built in. That already seems to be, like, built into, like, her character design and her lore from her showcase. So I guess the part to me that kind of, like, pokes some holes in that theory, right, is the fact that you have, like, the dark Chisa already there. My headcanon is that dark Chisa is Chisa and Aleph 1. Yeah. Like Chisa with Aleph 1's influence? I don't know. We got like Dark Zhang Liao, right? We also have like Dark Carlotta too. So I don't know if drawing any comparisons to Aleph 1 right off of the bat is that ambitious. But in a similar sense, we've had Dark Zhang Liao, we've had Dark Carlotta. So yeah, maybe Dark Chisa is just like another kind of like version of that too. Yeah, we also had Dark Linnae as well. Overall, I think it's a very, very, very interesting theory. 1,000,000%. And I think it definitely has like a different perspective on the whole Chisa saving Rover conversation that's been floating around so much. Because I think a lot of people have gone with the idea that like, oh, like Chisa would just like cut through void space and kind of like gather up all the people. But if the idea is that it's like a future version of Chisa that learns how to control her forte and accesses time travel and like Sonaros field travel a lot easier, well, that makes a lot of sense too, right? Because these doves, now that I've seen them, yeah, these doves are showing up kind of fucking frequently on the rewatch over here. These doves are fucking everywhere. And it's almost too much for it to not be related. And well, who else would be able to cut into Honami City if Chisa's trapped there? Who else would be able to cut into Honami City? I don't know, right? That we haven't really heard about any other characters that have this sort of power. The dove symbolizes guidance and protection. Yeah, you know what? I don't know. I think he's cooking here, guys. I do think he's cooking here. But then this also begs the question of, why did this Miko, like, not help Amith at all? Is she just destined to suffer? Or, like, maybe she can't because she's a digital ghost? That could explain it, too. The Miko can't help Amith because she's a digital ghost. And Rover's one of the only people that can actually get in contact with her. That could be that, too. Rover's one of the only people that can interact with Amith. In the video, it was shown that this Miko was interacting with Lucilla. Or that was the theory, that it's interacting with Lucilla. So how is it that future Chisa has full control of her forte? I don't, like, the implication is that it's a future version so that they're more experienced. So, like, you're basically asking, how does somebody with more work experience have more work experience? Wait, what is your fucking question? I don't know. She learned some shit? It's a future version of her, so she learned some shit? I don't fucking know. That's the point, is that when somebody has, like, a future version of themselves, it's not immediately revealed how they're, like, more skilled or how they're more knowledgeable. I think it's just, you'll find out. If this theory is true, you'll eventually end up finding out. But, like, I don't know. She got, like, trained by somebody. I don't know. Rover helped her control her forte. I don't know. Like, her past version of her future version of herself teaches the past version. There's a lot of explanations that could occur, but yeah, I feel like that's probably like the loosest plot hole that's available over here. At least personally, that's what I think. That seems like the plot hole that's the easiest to address. But yeah, overall, I would say there are some people in the chat that thinks that Life Lessons is like burning down the kitchen over here. But in retrospect, I feel like a part of this is trying to find like some sort of explanation for why 2.8 felt so fucking disjointed as a story. And it would be hilarious if that disjointedness, right? The fact that the story doesn't feel like it flows. The fact that everything feels like it's like out of order or like random was intended. And the reality is that maybe 2.8 was actually meant to feel like a fucking mess, narratively, because there was a bunch of shit that was happening off screen. Because I'm gonna be real, I thought the 2.8 story on a first glance was like, oh, it's like visually nice, but like what the fuck is going on narratively? What's going on with all these plot points? And from what I'm seeing over here, it kind of does make a lot of sense if this Miko is playing a very, very big hand in it. But it's kind of obvious they are with all the dove references. I think he's spot on about 90% of this. And the theory crafting part that he talks about, right? It's not really even like that big of a section of the video. It could be neat if that's the case. But the Miko could just entirely be a completely new unit that doesn't really have that much relation to Chisa at all. But if the opposite is the case, well, I guess Chisa could potentially be the first character, right, that gets an alternative form in this game. The Miko is Chisa's mother. It could be that shit too. Yeah, maybe the Miko is Chisa's mom. I don't know if a gacha game would do that though, because then that would imply that there's too many implications with that. We already know what the drama's looking like with Alice in Genshin Impact. Yeah, we already know what the implications are when it comes to that whole situation. Crazy video by Life Lessons, but bro does seem like he's fucking spitting. Now let me just go ahead and take a look at his comment section and see see if there's a disaster in there. Oh, he's been doing a good job of moderating it. He's been doing a good job moderating it. Okay, all right. Yeah, no, this guy, this guy's gonna, he's gonna have a bit of a. He's gonna have a situation on his hands for the next couple of days. If you know, you know. Let me know what you all thought. Peace out.